Hi, I'm Verena and I'm here today with Harden Reddy to talk about his career as a Boylesque performer. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into burlesque?
Yeah, I've lived in San Francisco for 4 years. I came there without basically any idea about burlesque or even dance or anything. And I met by chance Ming's Demeanor, and we became good friends and eventually a couple. And I was basically around her and her troupe of burlesquers. Ming's Demeanor is a burlesque performer, burlesque teacher, and producer in Oakland, California. And she has the Fishnet Follies, which is her troupe and her school. And I was basically hanging around the troupe for almost, I would say, half a year or something, without actually really getting involved, except I was building a little bit props for them, and I was at all the shows, of course, and I was very inspired and seeing all those ladies do those fantastic things. And also, Ming Samir also took me along to see Burlesque Hall of Fame. That was in 2013. And that blew me away. I mean, it was just amazing. I came there and I was so new to burlesque that I was thinking, well, it's 4 days of burlesque shows. I don't think I'm gonna go to all those 4 shows. It's gonna be might be boring or something. But of course, it was not boring at all. It was one of the most fantastic things I've ever seen in my life. So, and I was very inspired to do something then as well in burlesque. And I asked Minx basically back then, let's say in a year from now or something, I want to be a man prop for you for one of your acts. And she said, well, I think you can do more. And yeah, from there, I became involved a lot more.
For those who don't know, can you tell a little bit more about what Burlesque Hall of Fame or BHOF is?
So the Burlesque Hall of Fame is a museum for burlesque in Las Vegas, which is led by Dustin Wax. And the Burlesque Hall of Fame Weekender is basically a fundraiser for this museum, because it primarily is financed from this fundraiser. And 2, it's one of the most prestigious and well-known shows and competition that there is for burlesque, with a lot of international performers. Basically, the best of the best come together each year there in Las Vegas.
What was your first act as a solo performer?
That was in 2014, March 2014. And what I did before that, I was basically a stage kid. I built stage props and helped the ladies, and was of course stage kittening. And the way I did this was basically I dressed up as a butler and held a silver tray and tongs, and picked up the clothing from the ladies with these tongs. And that was huge fun. And basically I also started to dance around that time. And from this butler idea, I developed my first solo around that. And that was a very classical chair dance. And that happened then in March 2014 that I performed that on stage for the first time. I remember I almost died.
Do you think that it's necessary in a burlesque competition to distinguish between Boylesque and burlesque?
I would also like it if there would not be the necessity for too much distinction in this regard. And I think with Lou Henry Hoover winning this year, King of Boylesque, it's already going in that direction, and that's a good thing.
You just mentioned this year's winner, and who was the winner last year?
Yeah, that was me.
Congratulations. And what exactly were the titles that you won?
Best Boylesque, and also most innovative, which also was a fantastic, great thing. I would already have been very happy with all of that one alone.
And so that was 3 years after you decided that you wanted to perform as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the act that you created? Was it something that you created without having any competition in mind? And what was your inspiration for that?
No, I did not create that one for the competition. It was basically the first time that I even thought about that was after I performed the first time, and especially Minx Demeanor came up to me and said, "Well, this is festival material. You should apply with that for Burlesque Hall of Fame." And the act itself was basically it's a puppet act, and it came from the idea of having robot or puppet pieces flying off my body. And the first idea that I basically had for that was that I would have body parts and strings attached that are basically pulled off by people from off stage. And I was thinking through that, and of course this would have been very, very difficult because you would need a lot of people, and how do you hide the strings and everything. And well, of course, the next thing you think about is, okay, strings, body pieces, it's a marionette. And there you go, Pinocchio.
That sounds pretty simple. It doesn't look that simple when you see it on stage.
The nice thing about the story of Pinocchio is that what Pinocchio wants to do, not even really sure if that is also happening in the Disney version, but in the version that I grew up with, what Pinocchio wants is he wants to be a real boy. He wants to be not a puppet, not made of wood. He wants to be a real boy. And this is basically a wonderful story that you can do while you are getting naked, because this is what we do when we are stripping ourselves from our artificial shell. We are basically becoming more human. So
you already told us that you built props for the fishnet follies. So does it mean you also built all the props for your winning act?
Oh yeah, of course. That is one of the things that I like the most about Boylesque, that you are basically, with Boylesque you have so many avenues into so many other creative areas. You have dance and storytelling, but you also have crafting a lot, and I love making costumes and props. So I've already done this forever. Since I was a little child, I was always making things.
Can you tell us a couple of names? Who inspired you the most this year?
Really difficult. I think the names that come immediately to mind is basically Matt Finish, which is the act that he did for the All-Stars night is basically my new favorite Boylesque act. Also, I'm always really inspired by Ray Gunn and what he does with his troupe at the moment, the vertical sideshow. Also, Gia Lady is always a great inspiration for me.
You're now back in Munich, Germany, and how is the burlesque scene different here from the United States?
I mean, back in Munich, it's definitely smaller, way smaller than in San Francisco. Well, Munich is also kind of, it's a major city, but it's still a kind of a village. It feels like a village. 1.5 million people, but still, you have the feeling you run into people all the time. I am super happy that there is a striving burlesque scene and that people like you are pushing it forward so much. But I really hope that I can also, one, see the day, and two, help bring burlesque a little bit more into the minds of more people. Because, for example, a lot of people in Munich don't really know what burlesque is, and most people, even those people who know, would not know what a man does in burlesque.
And do people know in the US?
Oh yeah.
What are your plans for the future of Harden Reddy?
I want to, basically create more art, and I also want to continue teaching. So I'm already planning together with Dixie Dynamite, who has a school of burlesque here in Munich, that we want to do something together, and I hope I can also teach a couple of men here, because I think this would be a really awesome if a village like Munich could bring forth a couple more men who do burlesque.
For years I've been trying to persuade men to start burlesque, and most of the time they said something like, oh, no one wants to see something like that, no one wants to see me get naked. And I always said, well, you couldn't be more wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, of course not everyone has the body and the looks that you have, but what would you say to the average looking man, or a man with a little bit of a belly who is interested but who's afraid that women or people in general don't want to see him strip?
Yeah. That's kind of a common misunderstanding that I think also comes a little bit from the misunderstanding that people still really don't know what burlesque really is. Burlesque is not a strip club. It's not, you have to have a model figure and you're dancing for basically a very certain audience and a very certain type to basically get money. It is burlesque, and that means it is a way more diverse. The term burlesque itself basically stems from a mockery. When burlesque first emerged from theater, there's a lot more freedom what you can do, but it's also not only a mockery. The nice thing about burlesque is it's basically, you can tie any creative art form into burlesque that you think is valuable to the audience, and the idea that people only want to see you if you have muscles or are thin or whatever is completely wrong. That is not what a burlesque is about. People enjoy burlesque for its goofiness, for its skill, or for the personality of the performer. It's way more storytelling than looking at nice bodies. And the idea that you only have a nice body if you have a certain type of magazine type of body is absolutely wrong. And that is also one of the things that I love about burlesque the most, because burlesque tells exactly that story, that it is not about that. It's nice if you have that. You can strut around on stage a little bit more easily, but in the end, it's on what you give to the audience. It's the energy you give to the audience. It's the story you tell the audience. It's what you come up with, your creativity and your personality that you want to give to the audience. This is burlesque. And absolutely everybody can do that. Absolutely everybody. It does not matter what you look like. Absolutely not.